Palantir CEO. Let's go ahead and react.
The best tech scene in the world, not the best, not the second best, but like basically the top 10 tech scenes are all America, which you see in market cap, you see in innovation, you see in the people you mentioned. The thing is, my view, Palantir's view, my book's view is not an historical diagnostic of the past. It's only a diagnostic of the past to get people to do things in the present and the future. And the more people in tech, the more builders. Like, what makes America unique is that we have a culture of builders expressed in technology. And the more builders that are helping the U.S. government be stronger and better and superior to all other governments in the world, the better for everyone. And so I very much support all builders, everyone who's done something important, pitching in to make America stronger, better, and the West superior, and America have a dominant position in the world. So I think these things are really, really good, and obviously welcome them. And whether one was there yesterday, maybe we were alone for 15 years, and that's okay. We're not alone now.
Yeah, they're all there now. And there's been a shift in the posture of foreign policy under President Trump when it comes to talking tough. The things that you talk about, what makes America strong and destroying our enemies. Have you been supportive?
I'm super supportive of my version of he's acting tough, and that's why, look at the hostages. All of a sudden we have all these hostages who are free. Some of them are Americans. And look, our adversaries need to know that they, as I've been saying for 15, 20 years, is like, if they're not afraid of us, there's literally no way they're going to act rationally. In fact, they are acting rationally. If they're not afraid of us, why shouldn't they just represent their own interests? Is what they do. So but there are really two ways America can be strong vis-a-vis our adversaries. One is put the fear of like death into our adversaries at any random moment, which I think is happening for the first time in a long time. And two, get the economy to be super strong. And if you look, like I spent half my life in Europe, look at the difference between what's going on in Europe and what's going on here. And Europe is like culturally similar. Should have similar ability to produce technology, to produce builders, to produce innovation. And like the delta between what's happening in America and similarly situated societies is just enormous and compounding. And obviously, I would like our allies to do better, but for now, we just have to focus on America, and Palantir's thriving.
What about the gap between America and China? You said that the U.S. has the dominant tech scene, 1, 2, and 3. We think that, we thought that, and then we get a development like DeepSeek.
Well, it's like, first of all the facts aren't available, but what I think you're going to find is it's much easier than people want to believe to be the second mover, because you can train on our models and do things we've already done. And that's a danger for America. Like, we're the first mover, we're the first builder, we build these things. Only we could have built like a large language model culture. Only we have built a software culture at scale. Only we have built a lot of the technologies in the world that are disseminated. Some are good, some are not. That's another thing in the book. Like, technology is not inherently good. It's good in maybe our hands. Same technology is not good in the hands of our adversaries. We have to acknowledge that. But that just means we have to run harder, run faster, have an all-of-country effort. I think you're going to see that, and certainly the tech community has woken up to the fact that second mover can move very, very quickly, especially if we've already done the innovation, and the innovation and the copying of the innovation is something different. One of the things, though, we've seen at Palantir, just as a much less important example, is everybody made fun of us, everyone derided our kind of anti-woke, pro-meritocracy, build software that is actually valuable for an enterprise, do a DPO instead of IPO so that individual investors can make money, full alignment. Now a lot of people want to copy us, but copying is not actually as easy as it looks. If you stick to your internal dynamics of how to build, what you're building, a culture of execution, it is harder to copy than people think. It's still possible. It's easier than you'd like it. And that's basically the situation that I see that we're in America. We have the lead. We have to focus on making sure we keep it. And our adversaries are going to copy anything they can and try and innovate on top of it.
Okay, so good stuff out of Alex Karp there. Kind of a lot of the talking points I would expect him to be discussing there, okay? So let's talk about earnings, if they're going to miss these earnings or if they're going to beat these earnings. All right, so here's where I always like to start is, what did they do the last quarter? So last quarter they came in with a slight beat on EPS. Additionally, they came in with a $21 million beat on revenue, which is, a decent-sized beat, but nothing too crazy there, okay? So as far as this quarter, they're about to report 11 cents expected. I expect them to meet or beat that number. I would say a little more on the beat side, maybe come in with 12 cents. And then as far as revenue goes, they're supposed to come in with 781. I'm also expecting a beat there. I expect them to push upwards of just over 30% revenue growth. Okay. Now, let me be very crystal clear. We cannot have this happen here, okay? See this first quarter revenue growth, 26%, the following quarter, 24%, 22%, 21%. I can tell you, if that happens, Palantir stock's crashing over the next 12 months. We cannot have that happen. Palantir needs to come in with a revenue guide well over 30%. And I mean 30 is the bare minimum we can come in with. We need to be growing revenue 35, 40 plus percent in 2025. We cannot come in with 26%, 24%, 22%, 21%. No, not at the valuation we're trading at. If this stock was $30 or $40 today, completely different story. Completely different story. But not at $80 plus going into these earnings, okay? No. And let me show you kind of how this shakes out, okay? So let's say Palantir does 25% revenue growth on average over the coming years. This would be a very bad number, man. Very bad number for Palantir. The product's way too good. There's way too big of an opportunity to only be growing revenue 25% on average over the coming years, right? But and let's say net income goes up much more rapidly than that. Let's say 35% here, okay? So about 10 percentage points more. That puts us at 29% net income margins come 2028. Now, Palantir's, kind of gets put in the SaaS category, so it's always going to command a big valuation, especially at these sorts of growth rates. So you could say anywhere between an 80p on the low range, okay, given these sorts of growth rates, if we're talking 25% top line, 35% bottom line on average, and let's call it 120 on the end there. Now, obviously, stocks in general in the market kind of trade around 20 PE, but keep in mind these growth rates are so far exceeding. These are like 4x to 5x the growth rates of an average company, so therefore you're going to have to 4x or 5x the PE ratio as well for this company, right? So here's the deal. This is why Palantir cannot, I repeat, cannot have 25% revenue growth. We will be with a stock that stagnates for years. We're not talking stagnates for a quarter or a few quarters. No. We're talking a stock that will stagnate for years to go in the future. That's not going to be fun. This is why Palantir has to come in with bigger numbers. Now, if we say a 30% revenue growth number, which once again, this is bare minimum, man. I'm telling you guys, this is bare minimum. We've got to have better than 30%, but bare minimum 30%, and we can do 40% for the bottom line, right? Now we're talking, if we can value the company pretty highly, right? We can get some growth in 2027, 2028, but the stock might still stagnate for the next 2 years, okay? So that's why I call that bare minimum, because it's like maybe we can make some money in a few years out, but it's like not much money to be made. Now, if we bump this baby up to 35%, here's where things start to get more interesting with this company, because then you could say we could grow net income at probably like 45% clip on average. So now at least we're talking about some likely positive returns 2027, 2028, right? And we can at least get a decent compounding annual growth rate over the next few years. But where things get really interesting, this is why we have to get to at least this number. We have to start growing revenue with this company 40% or more. Because here's where things start getting really intriguing. If we start growing at that, we'll be able to do net income growth of probably about 55% per year, okay? And now you can see where the math starts to get interesting. So now you can say, if you push out to 2028, we get a compound annual growth rate on the low end of about 11%, on the high end of about 23%, right? But you could also say if the company's growing 40% top line, 55% bottom line, we could probably push this valuation range from 80 to like 95, because the growth rates are so far superior versus an average company, right? And then you could push these to probably 135 on the low end, right? Do 135, because we're talking about now we're talking 6-7x, where an average company's growing at. So we can talk about 6 to 7x a P ratio as well. And so now you see the compounding annual growth rates get much more interesting. This is why we have to come in with we have to start pushing these growth rates up toward 40% or above. If we do that, folks, then we're talking about we're in business with Palantir. But I can tell you, if we come in with some lame, even 30%, or especially if it's in the 20s, guys, this stock will be dead money for the next several years, not months, years. And so as a Palantir shareholder, man, we've got to see that better than this. We got to see it, man. And so that's why this quarter is so vital in what the company has to say around revenue growth, because I can tell you, they just say, oh yeah, 20-something% revenue growth for 2025. No bueno. Hey, I want to thank you so much for watching that clip here today. I hope you really enjoyed that one. What you're looking at right now is 1000xstocks.com. 1000x does not just show you a billion different metrics that are completely irrelevant. It's curated, mandatory metrics, advanced metrics, curated for long-term investors, not for traders, so you can understand a company on the highest level possible, how it operates, and most importantly, making judgments on whether you want to invest capital into a company or not. Understanding the upside, the downside with companies. Is that company worth our investments, or shall we keep our hands away? So how you can access 1000xstocks.com is you can go to the description area of this video, or you can go to 1000xstocks.com, apply for access to the service. Let's go ahead and react to this bull and bear debate around Palantir, which is funny because the bull, Dan Ives here, you know what his price target is? $90. That's, when these guys put on a price target, it's a 12-month price target. And here we are tomorrow, the stock's likely going to be trading 100 plus. So we're going to likely be even ahead of a bull like Dan Ives' numbers here, which is crazy to think.
On the other side of this debate, though, is Brent Thill. He's tech sector lead at Jefferies. He has an underperform on Palantir and a $28 price target. It's good to have you both here. And Brent,
By the way, I usually just reserve reactions to my reaction channel, Jeremy Lefebvre Makes Money, but I thought this would be such a great reaction to put into this Palantir overall video and kind of hear some different folks' perspectives on the quarter.
I'm going to start with you, because in the shareholder letter that Alex Karp puts out every quarter, he basically called this a new phase as AI adoption accelerates, and with it, sales growth, which is what we're seeing at Palantir. And I spoke to Karp, and he said it to me like this. He said, quote, say you're a PE company, you acquire a large insurance company, and you wanted to change the cost of revenue, meaning how can you have fewer people doing the same amount of underwriting and have the same number of customers? That was a multi-year project, like 3 to 5. Now it's a one-quarter cost that's completely different. And if you do it and the company down the street doesn't, you're going to have very different margins and very different revenue. And then he goes on from there. But we've talked about,
and that's the huge point. That's why I talk about it as like it's almost like a compounding interest and a snowball, where he talks about, if another company doesn't do it. But here's the thing: the other companies will do it eventually over time. Why? Because salespeople change companies all the time. Executives change. Other board members change. Board members, right? Like all these companies have board of directors. All these large companies. And so board of directors of this company over here is like, oh yeah, I'm on the board of this company over here. We're using Palantir. It helped us in this way, this way, this way. They start talking to the CEO about it, right? The other board of directors, and it's just like creates this like virality of a product, especially in kind of the SaaS space. And it's just like, it just sets up Palantir so well for many, many years of very strong revenue growth.
For a while now, that 2025 could be the year where you see this application layer actually take effect, and you see corporate America begin to realize the benefits of the investments they've made on AI. Palantir seems to be very far ahead based on the earnings we just got. Does this change your thesis?
Look, they've had great fundamentals. I think this is a question of valuation. Again, you'd have to grow 5.
Oh, shoot. He's got a $28 price target on it. Oh, dang. I didn't know he was that bearish. Dude, that's tough. That's tough. $28 price target and the stock's trading $100. Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
Row at 50%.
Palantir seems to be very far ahead based on the earnings we just got. Does this change your thesis?
Look, they've had great fundamentals. I think this is a question of valuation. Again, you'd have to grow 5 years in a row at 50%, and the stock would still trade at 15 times revenue. So it's not that we're arguing the fundamentals. Kudos to them, and great call by Dan on the stock. Our view is more about liking other names. And remember, 50% of this base is retail and insiders. There's no other software company like this. It's the lowest asked about question of any institutional investor because barely any institutional investors own it. And so I go
Okay,
back.
so few things there. Few things, okay? One is he makes a completely fair argument around valuation. You can't debate that. Like, it trades at extremely high multiples. Trailing 12-month P, forward P, 2-year forward P, like we show on 1000X, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what metric you want to look at. It trades insanely rich, right? Price to cash flow, like, it doesn't matter what you look at. It trades very rich. Completely fair point by him, right? Can't debate that. But he talks about, like, institutions, aren't really interested in one, they hardly own it. If anything, you could say more and more institutions and big money are going to be more and more interested in buying Palantir stock over the next year, 2 years, which then you could say leaves a lot more upside ahead, right? So, I mean, that's another way you could look at it here, which is pretty intriguing from the stock price perspective.
We've all seen what happened to Snowflake at 50 times revenue. We've all seen what happened to Datadog and others. And maybe Palantir is different. Kudos to them, and I agree with you. It's getting to the application layer, and they're in a great spot. So I'm not sitting here attacking the fundamentals. The fundamentals are great.
Yep.
Ours is largely focused on the stock and looking at what's happened to investors in the last 20 years when you chase things at 50 times revenue.
Yeah, that forward P is no jokers. That's no jokers, right? That's a holy smokers. 216 forward P. That's his point's fair. That's the thing, right? Like, you can't say it's not fair. Like, it does absolutely trade at extremely high multiples.
It doesn't end well, and none of them have. So I think part of it's we're just scarred from that, and maybe we're totally wrong on that. And so I acknowledge, we're wrong, but I also acknowledge, like, you got to look at the history and look at the fundamental analysis. So that's kind of what we're sticking to right now.
Dan.
So will Palantir stock crash? The answer is absolutely. Eventually, Palantir stock will go through a major crash, and the stock will do around 40, 50, 60, 70%. Right? And then it's going to be a climb back that's going to likely take years to get back to where it used to be. But predicting exactly when that time is very difficult. And I don't think that time comes until either you get a full-blown stock market crash and, like, total risk off in the market, right? Or you get a situation where the revenue growth rates have peaked, right? And then that revenue growth starts to decelerate. Once you get to that point in time, I think that's when Palantir stock starts to be very, very challenged. But once again, when do we predict that's going to happen? Could that be next quarter? Could that be 3 quarters from now? Could that be 6 quarters from now? And that's a tough thing, right? And in that meantime, you could see more upside potential there.
I want to get your response to that because valuation has been raised by a number of folks here. One of the other things that came up in my conversation with Karp is the fact that, this is how he put it, he said we don't have the right jokes, the right suits, the right steak dinners. We're never exactly the right people at the right time, unfortunately, and that's probably the biggest limit to our growth. Wrong people, wrong time, but right products.
Yep.
Sort of getting at this idea that they tend to be contrarian and that they don't have a marketing team, and yet they're growing. You've called it the Messi of AI, but the Messi of AI does look expensive based on some valuation metrics. Is it right for a pullback here?
Hey, but to be fair, Messi's also expensive. You can't get him to play for cheap, right? Same thing with Ronaldo. No, those guys don't play for cheap.
Look, I think this was a historical quarter. And ultimately, look, the Bears, they were bearish at $10. Hated 40 and despised it 100, right? And I think they can see AI in the spreadsheets. When we do the checks...
Oh my gosh, RBC has an $11 price target on Palantir. $11? I mean, people should have just done more study on the business model and the product. I think that's if they would have just done more study on the product, I think they would have... I don't think they would have $11 price targets on the stock. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Done for Palantir. I think it's the next Oracle, it's the next Salesforce. I think this is a company, when it comes to AI revolution, this is really front and center is what's going to be one of the huge beneficiaries there.
Do they need to pull the marketing lever here? Do they need to build out that team, or it's not necessary?
I think the scary thing is, with no direct sales force and basically more inbound, this is what they've done. In terms of what these types of numbers, you start to look out the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think this is ultimately, this could be $1 trillion market cap when we look out for the next 2, 3, 4 years. As Brett's talked about, I mean, institutional has obviously been very negative on it. But as we've talked, I think many have missed the biggest historical growth names the last 20 years because they focus on valuation.
I'm going to try to get to both of you quick, but we got to be quick on the answers. Brent, is Palantir Tesla or NVIDIA here? Tesla, where fundamentals don't matter because the personality of the CEO is just so big, or NVIDIA, where it might look expensive now, but next year it's going to look cheap because of the fundamentals?
It's Tesla right now.
Okay.
No. I mean, again, you can't go back to any history.
And keep in mind, I own both stocks. Tesla made me more money than I could ever imagine, and Palantir's made me a good deal of money, right? Not as much as Tesla. But the moral of the story is, and I'm kind of like, poking on my own kids here with my stocks, right? But here's the difference between Tesla and Palantir. Tesla numbers have sucked. Point blank, period. Palantir numbers have anything but sucked. They've been nothing but amazing. And so that's the key difference. And that's why I don't think it's fair to call Palantir Tesla. I think it's actually disrespectful to Palantir to call them Tesla because they're coming through with the numbers. Elon's not coming through with the numbers. Elon's coming through with, hey, we're going to sell 1 million robots. We're going to we're going to have Optimus. We're going to have, we're dominating self-driving, all these things, right? Maybe some of that true, maybe some of that won't come true, blah, blah, blah. But the moral of the story, that's all like, we hope to do something someday. The numbers aren't good. Automotive revenues is down 8% year over year. Palantir, last time I checked, none of their numbers are down. They're skyrocketing. And so it used to be a huge compliment, I think, to get put in the same sentence as Tesla. I don't think it is right now. I think it's disrespectful to Palantir. I really, really do. And that comes from a Tesla shareholder, right? And a Palantir shareholder.
Company that's ever sustained it. So again, if they can accelerate growth and keep it, then we're wrong. But it would be the only company in software that I've covered for 25 years that would maintain that.
Okay, Tesla's not bad though. Dan, is it Tesla or NVIDIA?
I'd say it's Tesla with a little NVIDIA, and guess what? That's a cool club to be in. And when it comes to Tesla, I think this is Tesla in 2015, 2016, where I view Palantir.
Okay. Just as long as it's not Tesla in 2023 or 2024, a brief period of time, maybe Alex Karp needs to buy Twitter.
And again, but again, you look at Karp, you look at Musk, visionaries.
Yeah, visionaries, big personalities too. All right, Dan, Brent, thank you. Time for a CNBC News update now.
So you see what I just did there? I just broke it down for you guys. We went through all the numbers. I showed you the major changes that are happening with the business model, right? And I did it all fairly. I didn't just come out and just, say the stock's going to go to billion and trillion and gazillion dollars, right? Broke it all down. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what's going really good with the numbers. Here's what could be going even better in the future here, right? Here's where the valuation's at. And here we are. My reaction channel at some point this year is likely going to hit 100,000 plus subscribers, which will be my 5th YouTube channel to get a silver play button, which is I'm super thankful for. And if I think about the success, I think a lot of it has to do with that sort of fairness around companies, where I can show you what's good, what's bad. I don't just look at it one-sided and just say, to the moon. I look at it, here's a fair assessment of what's going on here. Here's the risk, here's the reward, here's the potential, boom, right? And I thank you all for being here. And I hope you always enjoy that and really respect that. And I'd say 99% of my subscribers respect that in a huge way. Maybe 1% don't respect that and they just want me to, come out and say nothing but positive things. But for most of you guys, I know you guys absolutely love that and you really respect that on a high level. So appreciate y'all for being here. If you're looking to apply, join private group, that will be pinned comment down there. You click on that, fill out an application. We'll see if we can get you access in there with us, the Palantir chat, SoFi chat, all the different chats. As well as access to all of my best course curriculums. See if we can get you access to that maybe a little later on this week or maybe over the weekend, okay? Alrighty, guys, much love and have a great day.